Good morning, everyone. Welcome here. My name is Peter. I'm one of the pastors here today. I keep saying that. I'm one of the pastors here almost every day. Also today. I'm going to start off with some difficult news. Many of you will remember Keith Ortberg. He was baptized here not too many months ago, and when he was in the baptismal tank, he told us of his journey with cancer. Well, his journey has come to an end, and we're pleased to tell you he is at home with his Father, with his Heavenly Father in heaven, and his family remains to grieve. There will be a funeral for him this Saturday. You can scan the QR code and find the details of that. You're invited to come. Warning, he's a car guy. It's going to look like a car guy funeral. If you don't like it, you can keep that to yourself. We don't care. It's not about you. So, you're invited to come. Keith and I, we got along like peanut butter and jam. We would talk about cars, and he was into the restoration of cars. I'm not. I do something different than that. I want to explain to you a little bit of what restoration is, because it's a word that gets thrown around in all sorts of different things, and we almost always have it wrong. Restoration is so specific. In fact, there are those of us, and I'm one of them, that say restoration is actually impossible. The only way restoration can happen is if you can stop the decay of time. Now, I don't care what color you dye your hair. Underneath it, it's gray. Restoration is so specific that, and it's going to sound like a joke, but it really isn't. The sticker on the tube inside of the radio that you could not see unless you disassembled the radio, it has to be the exact sticker, or the car is not restored. The wire that goes under the carpet that brings electricity to the, I see people nodding back here, you know what I'm talking about, that brings electricity to your taillights, has to be the same wire, made by the same company, with the same lettering on it, that is the same length with the same connectors on the end of it, or the car is not restored. The amount of paint you have on the car has to be the same amount of paint that was on the car when it was new, and if it isn't, the car is not restored. And there's this nifty little tool that you put on top, and it shoots a laser through the paint, and it measures the depth of the paint. I have no time for that. That's not how I roll at all. I like a car painted. I even like a car not painted. But Keith loved the restoration and the restoration process. But we talk about restoration all the time, and we'll say, this is a piece of furniture that's been restored. And when you look at it at all, you go, well, not really. There's scars on this. If you look at a car far enough, you will find corrosion. I promise you that. Anyone who says that it isn't there is just a person who's dyed their hair purple and say, I have purple hair. No, you don't. You have purple color in your hair. There's corrosion there. There's dents there. There's all sorts of different ways that we make you believe that there's no dents. Some of us are really good at making you believe that there's no dents, but I assure you, there's dents there. Restoration is a word that is deeply misunderstood. I was at a church, a different church, when my kids were just little. And one of my favorite times at church, and this happens every Sunday, it happened today, is the worship team is up and they're all tuned up and they're singing and the volume's nice and loud, and it's before people get here, and it sounds so good, and it is this expectation and excitement about what is to come, and this means you're going to come, and we're all going to sing together, and it's going to sound so good. And I get to hear that every Sunday, and I just love it. And there was this one woman who, she would come early and she would sit there, and she wasn't part of the worship teams, but she would sit there and she would participate. And I went to her one day and I smiled. And this is a woman who, I love her very much, but she would never let a good moment go without correction. Do you know what I mean? Like if you could tell a joke and the punchline was funny, but it wasn't technically correct, she would kill the joke in order to tell you what was technically correct. She got invited to no parties. If that's you, you got to stop it. We know you're right. You're perfect in every way. Knock it off. And so we're there, and I looked at her and I said, I can't wait until we get to heaven. And I'm given this new body, and with this new body comes new abilities, and I'm going to be able to carry a tune. I'm going to be able to sing and sing well and sing in a way that means I don't have to sit at the front so you can't hear me. And she whirled around and looked at me and she said, no, Pastor, you have to be okay with what God gave you. Okay, fine. So here you go. When time ends and we're in heaven and it's 5 billion years later, I still am not going to be able to sing, and you're just going to have to deal with it. I actually think she's wrong. And I think she's wrong because of this whole new body. I'm not going to wear glasses either. I'm not going to be asthmatic, and every single one of you is going to have dyslexia the way God intended it to be. When what is wrong is made right. We were driving home, and my kids were just little. And there was a conversation that happened in my truck that it's one of the conversations in my life that made me stop and think, and it changed my opinion on how God interacts with those he loves. And it was this. We were joking about this woman. The kids didn't know it, but I knew it. We were just joking. You're not going to be able to sing. Well, yeah, I am. I'm going to be able to sing. We're talking about in heaven when the tears get wiped away and what's wrong gets made right. And all of the rust is gone, and all of the corrosion is gone, and all of the dents in your life are gone. And where God, who, as we learned last week, is this perfect shepherd, who we will learn today is a restorer to his standards, which means the personification of perfection. When that happens, we're talking about this, and one of my kids said to me, so Dad, does that mean that when we get to heaven, there's not going to be any stop signs? I have been in many Bible classes by many wise Bible teachers, and I have been to all of the Sunday schools. It's never come up. And we were sitting at a stop sign, and I was looking at the stop sign and going, there's no stop signs in heaven. What does that mean? And so we sort of chewed on it for a bit, and we batted it back and forth, and we decided that what stop signs do, and the only thing stop signs do, is they stop bad things from happening. So I don't know. Maybe there's a stop sign in heaven, maybe there isn't. I kind of hope that there isn't. That's kind of a fun thing. I don't know. But what happens when stuff gets restored to the way God intended it to be? When the hurt inside of you, the oldest hurt inside of you, the privatest hurt inside of you, is restored to not there anymore. I wonder what that's going to be like. As we've been journeying through the book of Ezekiel, and Ezekiel is the person, that's the name, and Ezekiel is the prophet, and he's been asked to do some amazing things, and he's done it, and now he is prophesying about what is soon to come. We are well into the story, and by the way, let me hit pause on this and say, you need to be here next week. You don't even know what's coming. But I'm telling you, be here. You got to change your calendar to be here. Make sure you're here, because what is coming will absolutely guide the rest of your life. You can't afford to miss it. You really can't. As we've been journeying through Ezekiel, and Ezekiel has been prophesying to the people, he is now at the place where in the third part of the book, where he is saying, the end of this exile is near. We can see that we will be going home. The place that we want to be going, that we want to be in the first place, the place we never wanted to leave, we are going to be going back there. And you can imagine all the different responses. There's the one woman at church that's going to say, no, God gave us here, and we're here, and we can't look to there. And people will agree with her and just quietly move away. And there'll be someone else that will say, yay, today is the day, let's do that. And there will be someone that says, that's not what my God says. My God says we're going there. And there's all of this tension and all of these different opinions, and all of this is happening. And Ezekiel, who's the guy who does weird stuff, who talks about the God we used to believe in, who has told us about doom and impending bad stuff coming, but has also told us about an invitation into a life where there is forgiveness and there is shepherding and there is a God recreating what has been put wrong. All of that's happening around him. And so we're going to start Ezekiel chapter 36. I'm going to start in verse 1, and we're not going verse by verse through this, but it'll be up on the screen, and so you can follow along. Son of man, prophesy to Israel's mountains. Give them this message. O mountains of Israel, hear the word of God. Have you ever spent any time talking to inanimate objects? I'll actually bet you have. You want to hear my examples? I want you to picture, you got to be on an airplane at 5 o'clock in the morning, which means you got to be at the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning. And the only thing between you and a full meltdown is that coffee pot. And you look at it and you say, oh, come on. You got to work today. You got to earn your keep today. Or how about, I want you to picture that you live somewhere cold with lots of ice. Can you picture that? I'll give you a minute. Work hard. And you're driving down the road, and all of a sudden your car just loses traction. And you are aimed at the ditch, and you say, oh, no, 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 no. Maybe you're a farmer, and you're standing in a dry field, and you're staring at the sky, and you're saying, rain, come on, rain. We actually do speak to inanimate objects. But I want you to understand this. Do you remember way back at the very beginning of this whole series when we were talking about the power of God, and there was this image of God, and there was this wheel inside of a wheel inside of a wheel inside of a wheel, and there was these half animal, half human images, and there was this light that covered everything. And we say this is a God that is not scared. This is a God that is not running in fear because he's been bested. That is not what we're talking about. We are talking about a God who is in power. We are talking about a God who is the creator and the sustainer, and he is present and he is engaged, and here he is. And that is the God that speaks to Ezekiel and says, talk to the mountains. And speak to the mountains about the restoration I'm doing. Son of man, prophesy to Israel's mountains. Give them this message. O mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Your enemies have taunted you, saying, Now the ancient heights belong to us. We came and we got it. It is now ours. Therefore, O mountains of Israel, hear the words of the sovereign Lord. He speaks to the hills and the mountains. And remember, this is the God that in not too much time in the New Testament will speak to the water and it will calm. In the Old Testament, he spoke to the water and it split. This is a God that when he speaks to the dirt responds. That kind of powerful God. Ravines and valleys and to the ruins waste and the long deserted cities that have been destroyed and mocked by surrounding nations. This is very present in their minds. This is what the Babylonians did. They know exactly what we're talking about. Exactly. Let's go to the next slide. This is what the sovereign Lord says. My jealousy, anger burns against these nations, especially Edom. What a weird sentence. Listen to this. Do you remember the story of Jacob and Esau? Two brothers. They're in the lineage of Jesus. They were born before Jesus was born. Not before God, but before Jesus. And do you remember there is a back and forth between them, where one of them is exceptionally hungry and the other one has food. And the one says, give me food, and the other says, I will give you food so long as you give me your... And there's a split. And out of that, we get Jerusalem and Edom. Jerusalem is known to be God's. And Edom is known to be not God's. But Edom was supposed to be Jerusalem. Amazing. Amazing. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. I have taken a solemn oath that those nations will soon have their own shame to endure. But the mountains of Israel will produce heavy crops of fruit for my people. And they will be coming home soon again. My wife comes from a farm in Manitoba. And there's parts of me that are jealous of her upbringing. And there's parts of me that are not. It's not. Go check on the cows. No, I'm sleeping. There's a homecoming this coming summer. We're in the process of planning it, which means people with more silver hair than mine are planning it, and we will agree to whatever they plan. And there are people that are coming from all over everywhere, and they're coming home. They're coming home to a place they may never have lived. They're coming home to the Scott farm, my wife's maiden name, in the town of Virden. And then it extends over, not really, but in our hearts, it extends over to a national park called Clear Lake, which we don't own, and don't hear me say that. Just we like it a lot, and we claim it as ours. We're going home. Don't you want to go home? Have you ever sat there and thought, I want to go home? One of the challenges that we have all the time is that when we go home, it isn't home. There was a young woman that worked for me, and she told me that she could no longer work for me because she was moving back to the small town in Manitoba because she was moving back home. And I was worried because she hadn't lived at home for a long time. And so I asked her to describe to me, what is moving home? And she said, when I was a little girl, my daddy was the pastor of the church there. And I had a key to the church. And me and my friends, whenever we wanted, we would go into the church and we would have sleepovers in the church. We can't do that now. Insurance says no. Alarms say no. There's reasons that we can't do that anymore. And there's some of us, and I know you're in here, where the inclination is to say, yes, we can. We can just do it. We should just start to do it. Except that if we do it, you're not the one that gets into trouble. But I am. And we can't do that anymore. And those days are gone. And her father not only is not the pastor of that church anymore, he doesn't even live in the province anymore. And there is a new person there. And I said to her, I think the town is great, but I am worried about you returning home and finding out that it is not home. But she couldn't hear that. So she packed up her life and her children, and she and her husband moved home. And they were so offended when home wasn't home. Sometimes we can't go home. Sometimes we can't. Have you ever eaten a recipe that you haven't had since you were a child and it was so good in your memory, and then when you ate it, it just wasn't that good? Have you ever had that? When I grew up, one of my mom's favorite meals was you take a banana and you cut it up and put it in a bowl, and then you pour milk on it and brown sugar. How many of you have had that? It's not good. It isn't. When was the last time you had it? But in your mind, isn't it great? And I've had it with my mom, and she says, bananas have changed. I don't know, Mom. I don't think that. Milk has changed. I've met a few cows. They're not big on change. Brown sugar's changed. I don't know. But it's just not home. But the mountains of Israel, let's go back one. But the mountains of Israel will produce heavy crops of fruit for my people, for they will be coming home again soon. Let's keep going. See, I care about you, and I will pay attention to you. Your ground will be plowed, and your crops will be planted. I will greatly increase the population of Israel. That has been a promise for Israel since the beginning. And the ruined cities will be rebuilt and filled with people. I will increase not only the people, but also your animals. O mountains of Israel, I will bring people to live on you once again. I will make you even more prosperous than you were before. Then you will know that I am Lord. This is the prophecy to the ground. God has been talking to people, and he is saying, I am the shepherd. I am the good shepherd. I will come and I will find you. I will keep you safe. I will stretch you. I will grow you. I will make you thrive. And now God is speaking to the very ground. Nobody talks to inanimate objects except for everybody. And the next time you yell at your coffee pot, God does that. He is that level of God. If he wants water, there is water. And if he wants ground, there is ground. And if he wants animals on the ground, he puts animals on the ground. This is the promise. This is why when we talk about the good news of Jesus, when we talk later than this, when the New Testament happens, the birth, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus, which we're coming up on Easter, we're going to be talking about this a lot. When we talk about this, we realize the Old Testament informs the New Testament. You cannot have just the New Testament because you will not fully understand it. The Old Testament is the latticed work that the New Testament is built upon. And there are these promises that exist, and there is There is the short-term fulfillment of these promises where, yes, they did go home. But there's more. Because we talk about this story not just as a historical story, but also about a promise that reaches all the way to 2025, Regina, Saskatchewan, into this room surrounding area. Let's go to the next slide. I will cause my people to walk on you once again, and you will be their territory and never again rob them of their children. This is what the sovereign Lord says. The other nations taunt you, saying Israel is the land that devours its own people and robs them of their children. Israel is the problem. They're their own worst enemy. Look at them. They keep running from the one true God and going to whichever idol it is that they choose to worship today. But you will never again devour your people or rob them of their children, says the sovereign Lord. I will not let you hear those of other nations insult you, and you will no longer be mocked by them. You will not be a land that causes its nation to fall, says the sovereign Lord. Do you see the depth of the restoration that God is talking about? When we reach out to God and we say, we need healing from you. We need you to change who I am. Or we need you to change the relationships around us. You need to change the reality that I live in. Even to the point of, God, I need you to change the ground I stand on. The God that we worship, the one true God, says, I've got that under my authority. All of it. And it's always interesting when we talk about God as if he's lost control. This is something I've said every week from stage. If you are a person that says the world is going to hell in a handbasket, can I ask, what Bible are you reading? What God is it you worship? I've never met that God. Your God is weak. I don't know why you worship that God. Worship money, that's far better. Worship sex, far better. Fame, reputation, beauty, pick one of those gods. They're way better than your God. Your God's lost control and running. The God that I worship reigns. The God that I worship, when he speaks to the ground, it responds. If he wants a storm, he says storm. If he wants calm, he says calm. That God. That God. This is the God that Ezekiel is talking about. God restores what was lost. This was lost to the Israelites. And God is saying and bringing it back. Let's move to the next verse. This is a little, no, let's not move to the next verse again and pretend you didn't see that one. There is also an element here where God restores shame to honor. Shame's an interesting thing because it is something that touches most people. I've never met anyone that shame doesn't touch. And if we poke at you long enough, there's a truth that comes to the surface. I know a man who is famous for telling you his shame when he's had a drink or two. When he's sober, he won't say it. But when he's just a little lubricated, he'll tell you his shame. And when he gets sober again, he wishes you never heard about his shame. For some of us, we're just better liars. We tell no one about our shame. And if we come and we say, do you have shame? I have no shame. I don't regret a thing I've done. Come on. Nothing? You don't regret a thing you've done? I regret things I've done. And God takes that shame and says, I'm going to restore that. I'm going to restore it back to honor. I'm going to take that shame away. And I'm going to restore it back to honor. All the way at the end of your Bible, there's a book called Revelations. Revelations is as misunderstood as Ezekiel. The difference is, everybody thinks they understand Revelations. But I'm telling you, the water is so deep on that one, and the things it refers to. The reason we do not often do series on Revelations is because you're eating the icing, but you've neglected the cake. Let me try this in a way that is more meaningful to my wife. You're having the barbecue sauce, but you didn't have the steak. And I'm telling you, there's more. And if you really want to know the taste of this, you got to eat the steak. So yeah, we do talk about Revelations. But I'm telling you, if you want to know Revelations, first you need to know Genesis 2 Revelations. Listen to these words. Revelations chapter 21. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the old heaven and the old earth had disappeared, and the sea was also gone. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of the heavens like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, "Look, God's home is now amongst his people. He will live with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be there with them. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. And there will be no more death, or sorrow, or crying, or pain. All these things are gone forever." I wonder about stop signs. And the one sitting on the throne said, "Look, I am making everything new. I am restoring it to what I intended it to be at the beginning before sin touched it." Trees look different because sin has fallen off them. Shoes look different because sin has fallen off them. You and I look different because sin has fallen off us. And the brokenness in us has been taken by God, and he has wiped those tears away, and he said, "That is finished." On the cross with my son, dead, buried to hell, and then resurrection. He said, "Write this down, for what I tell you is trustworthy and true." And he also said, "It is." Say it again. What's finished? Broken. Rust. Betrayal. Dents. Scars. Sadness. Unforgivenness. It's finished. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end and everything in the middle. Got it all. Didn't miss anything. To all who are thirsty, I give freely from the springs of water of life. How much do you want? Stick your head under. Drink till you can drink no more. All who are victorious will inherit all these blessings, and I will be their God, and they will be my children. Suddenly, speaking to inanimate objects isn't so silly, is it? Suddenly, when we hear about this good shepherd restoring us, it begins to sound like something we really, really want. This is the God of Ezekiel. This is the God who you worship here. This is the God that says, tell people the truth of who I am. It is good news. It was good news in the Old Testament, it's good news in the New Testament, and it is good news in what is to come. And this is the God that hates sin, because what exists is Him and relationship with Him. But what we have to lay down are fake, weak gods. And so I want to invite you to do that. We're going to sing a song. I want you to sing worshipfully to the God we've been describing. And when the song is done, Joel's going to come to the front.
So I don't know a whole lot about car restoration. I'm more of a car unrestorer, if that makes sense. But I do know a little bit about restoration. And it's because I've experienced restoration. And I think many of us can say the same. Jesus is the restorer. He's in the restoration business. He is creator, He's sustainer, and He is restorer. From personal experience, I know as a child, Jesus came into my life and He restored me. As a teenager, when I was wandering, Jesus found me in that wandering and He restored me. As an adult, in some of my deepest pain, Jesus was there and He restored me. So how has Christ restored you? How is Christ restoring you? And how does He plan to restore you more in the future? We all have more restoration to come. We'd be happy to pray with you about that restoration this morning. So come on up to the front. If you want someone to pray with you, we'd be happy to do that. But we pray that you have a good week this week. We invite you to come to our 242 night if you're free Wednesday night at 6. And I have one last invitation for you. Since we're talking about restoration anyway, if you haven't been baptized yet, and you've felt that thought, or you've been thinking that thought for a little while, we encourage you to come talk to me or Peter or one of the other staff today about being baptized. We have a baptism service coming up on April 20th, Easter Sunday, and we'd love to have you involved. Thanks for being here, everybody. We'll see you next week.